officials of Grenlec, principals, judges, most accurate timekeepers, members of the media, fellow debaters, students, audience all, good afternoon to you. Today we are here to debate the motion. Be it resolved that parental should be considered a privilege and not a right. We, the proponents of this motion, having conducted a thorough research on the issue, are fully convinced and will convince you that parental should be considered a privilege and not a right. As first speaker, in addition to defining key terms in this motion, I will outline the biblical and sociological views on the duties of parenthood and present information from a legal perspective to show just how serious responsibilities of parenthood is being taken by bodies lobbying for the rights of the child. The second speaker will look at the implications of things being considered as privileges versus rights, and will review some of the atrocities done by children by parents who regard parents as their rights. Our third speaker will in turn review the serious points made by our team and thereby convince you of the need not only to consider parents as a privilege, but for the need for legislation to be passed to ensure it does become a privilege. Parenthood is defined by the Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English as a job of being a parent. The Chairman's 20th century the duties of a parent. What does it mean to consider? According to the Chairman's 20th century dictionary, to consider is to discuss something so that you can make a decision about it. We on the proposition will be calling on all of you here today to make an important decision. A privilege, according to this same source, is a special advantage or immunity not enjoyed by all. And the Gorial Academic Encyclopedia defines a right as an entitlement or permission, usually of a legal or moral nature. Now to the issue at hand. Mr. Chairman, one may be tempted to argue that procreation is a natural biological process, a process ordained by God, as recorded in Genesis chapter 1, verses 28, and as such, one's legal claim to parenthood. But hold it right there. Mr. Chairman, does one given birth or participating in the conception process make one a parent? No. This is procreation, not parenthood. The process of parenthood, as presented in the book Parents and Children, The Ethics of the Family by Jeffrey Burleson, 1982, and I quote, is a job of involving non-reciprocal obligation, immense self-discipline, and personal sacrifice. The duties that go with being a parent are the tasks and assignments for which a person becomes responsible having taken on the job. End of quote. Mr. Chairman, the Bible does not say a great deal on parenthood and what it entails, but there are definitely references that reinforce the significance and seriousness of parenthood and the parent-child relationship. The obligation to parents to properly feed their children is clearly brought out in Matthew 7, verses 9 and 10, and I quote, "A what man is there of you, whom if your son asks bread, will give him a stone, or if he asks a fish, will give him a serpent?" Oh yes. What does the sociologist say regarding parenthood? Boston 1982 states, and I quote, "The young need to be cared for more than they need to be left alone, and good parents are those who do what they must to meet their children's basic needs." End of quote. In an interview with Ms. Laura Victor of the Ministry of Social Development, she stated that in Grenada, parenthood is treated as a moral right. This is dangerous. So just as persons choose whether they would exercise their right to vote or not, so too some parents, having brought a child into the world, then want to exercise another right to decide whether they would perform duties of parenthood or not. When persons decide not to vote, that deprivation is for them to bear. But on another hand, if someone having brought a child into this world decides not to undertake the job of parenthood, the deprivation is borne by the child. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights 1999 was passed as stated in the preamble in recognition of the right of people to self-determination, which is the right to choose. Is it a wonder, therefore, that there are no rights to parenthood among the 20th article? Is it therefore wise to consider parenthood as a right? We say no. According to the Article United Nations Declaration on the Rights of the Child, UNCRC, and I quote, "Parenthood is the caring and the rearing of children, the upbringing and development of young minds, bodies, and souls." End of quote. There is also international recognition of the importance of children living in a family, especially with their biological parents, as seen in Article 7 of the UNCRC. But this is certainly overshadowed by the need for children to be first and foremost in a safe, loving, and caring environment. The lab is clearly brought out in a statement issued by the United Nations International Children Emergency Fund, UNICEF, on January 2004, January 15, 2004. UNICEF denounces abuse and decries parenthood and family ties at the expense of a child's well-being. They are in full support of the removal of children from undesirable parents and endorse the principles of adoption in the UNCRC Articles 20 and 21. So, you see, Mr. Chairman, the right to procreate is not the right to populate the world with needs. According to O'Neill's 1979, and I quote, "No act of reproduction constitutes an exercise of the right to procreate unless it is performed with an intention to rear the resulting child so as to give it a life that is at least normal for its society." End of quote. Mr. Chairman, parenthood should be considered a privilege, and your children should be considered your most prized possession that you have the privilege of being able to raise. Judges, I could stand here and go on and on and on. But in the interest of time, my colleagues will do their part and further convince you and everyone else that parenthood should be considered a privilege, and I repeat, that parenthood should be considered a privilege and not a right. I thank you.